Good morning, and welcome back to the Daily Trucking Market Update podcast. I'm your host, Driven, and on this show, I dive into the markets to keep you truck drivers, you owner operators, up to date so you can best position your truck to make the most money. Now, I'll be using the DAT load board, and I appreciate them sponsoring this video. And in return, they've provided you with the link down in the description box for 10% off for your first 12 months, so check it out. Now, stick around. I got a dad joke to tell, and then we'll dive right in.
Rolling down the highway, sun just breaking through. Radio's playing loud, the show's for me and you. Learn how to book your loads and make that money flow. Keep the shiny side up wherever we go.
Now, all that I ask for the little chuckle, or maybe not, is to hit that like button and maybe consider subscribing if you get some value from this, or maybe just a laugh. Good morning. Hope everybody had a great weekend. As you can see, I got the intro fixed. I don't know what happened. It's my fault for not checking those last week. So sorry, but hey, it's fixed from this point forward. And in light of that, I'm going to do two dad jokes because there's one from the weekends that's just been not been used. So, let's go ahead and let's just do both. What is a witch's favorite subject in school? Spelling. My wife kind of chuckled at that one. And then 3.14% of sailors are pirates. If you're not a math nerd like myself, 3.14 is pi. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Oh no, we've got a black screen. That's okay. I can fix that really quickly. Like I said, I hope everybody y'all had a good weekend and y'all are ready to go, fired up for this week. The heat map looks really good, so I'm excited to get into it today. But let's have a brief look at the weather. So up there in the Northeast, you got a storm that's covering the majority of it, and a lot of it is a little bit heavier rain. The lighter green is just kind of light rain. The darker green is, pretty good, moderate to heavy rain. And then you got red where it's severe. So I don't see any red, so that's good. But we got some blue sneaking in. Ooh, blue, snow. It's snow season. So y'all be careful up there in the Northeast. And then you've got it looks like a storm or something brewing coming in from the Northwest. A little bit of rain in Utah. Scanning forward a couple of days. Yeah, so you're going to get some pretty good rain, snow up there in the Northeast throughout today. You got a storm brewing in the Great Lakes. You got that moving in the Northwest, and then over the next couple of days, it looks like you're going to get a decent amount of snow. And actually, in tomorrow, let's see, what is that? Tomorrow morning. What's today? Today's the 14th. So yeah, by the 16th, so a couple of days from now. So you got some pretty heavy snow, it looks like, up there in the Northeast. Y'all be careful up there. And then even later in the week, it's going to get some pretty good rain up there in the Northwest, sprinkled in with some snow. So that's what I got for you for the weather. Let's go ahead and we're going to look at the national load counts now. This gives us a good barometer of kind of what's going on overall. We can kind of compare, how the states are doing from, day to day, week to week. And then this is not the end all be all. Like for instance, California, it's going to show you that it's going to have a good amount of loads compared to the trucks, but not the entirety of the state. So it's important to not just use this as your only tool. Here in a few minutes, we're going to go in and dive into the heat map, and that's going to tell us what actual markets are hot and what are not, and where that freight is actually located. Just because the state's doing good doesn't mean that all the markets in that state are doing good. So Alabama, 688 loads in to 404 loads out. Hopefully we see that production increase from last week. It was down kind of across the board, especially towards the end of the week. So hopefully as they kind of get the situation in Florida cleaned up, that will, that'll start to fix itself. Even though there was something going on in just a small portion of the United States, the entire market gets affected from that. So hopefully we see that increase, and you're going to like the heat map the way it looks today. So stick around. Arkansas, 292 loads in to 431 loads out. So that's definitely an increase in decent shape for Arkansas. Let's see what the rest of the states around it look like as to whether or not you're going to have negotiating power. Probably not. Arizona, 521 loads in to 359 loads out. So we do see a little bit of a bump there. But, it's Arizona, so no negotiating power there. California, 1,458 loads in to 2,174 loads out. So it looks like we're returning back to normal. You do have some negotiating power there in California. Colorado, 409 loads in to 214 loads out. That's just average for Colorado. Connecticut, 222 loads in to 121 loads out. DC has 3 loads. Delaware, 66 loads in to 41 out. Florida, 3,441 loads in to 954 loads out. So we're seeing a bump on both sides of the coin, and that's just because of what's been going on there. So they're going to have an increase of trucks headed in as well as an increase headed out. But if you are headed that way, certainly just grab whatever the heck you can, get out of there. Don't get stuck. There's not a lot. Georgia, 1,949 loads in to 1,578 loads out. So that's certainly an increase in production there. Probably once again affected by Florida. It's not great. You're certainly not going to have a lot of negotiating power over there. And don't get stuck. Just grab a load. Iowa, 307 loads in to 438 loads out. So love to see that. That's an increase for Iowa. Would like to get back to that negotiating power that you had a couple of weeks ago. Last week, I was a little down, but it's in good shape. It's good starts to the week. Idaho, 83 loads in, 162 loads out, so twice as many loads out. That's okay for Idaho. It's a little weak on the loads in, but it's kind of normal for the loads out. But hopefully that Northwest, see that trend continue that we have been seeing for the past couple of months. Illinois, 1,430 loads in to 2,025 loads out. So good shape for Illinois. Like to see it starting off the week that way. A little bit of negotiating power there, not a ton, but a little bit, and likely in good shape, just that whole area. We could see that Indiana, 845 loads in to 1,383 loads out. So definitely good shape for Indiana there. Definitely have the negotiating power there. Kansas, 317 loads in to 377 loads out. So Kansas looking good as well. Not a ton of negotiating power, but you've got some, a little bit. Kentucky, 559 loads in to 762 loads out. So good shape for Kentucky. Also a good start to the week. Louisiana, 334 loads in to 465 loads out. So in really good shape for Louisiana. That's certainly an increase. Massachusetts, 437 loads in to 257 loads out. That's normal. Maryland, 426 loads in to 368 loads out. It's normal. I'm starting to notice that they just kind of hover below that 50-50 mark. Sometimes they do get above it, which is good. But this is the norm for Maryland. Maine, 61 loads in to 111 loads out. Michigan, 568 loads in to 858 loads out. Excellent for Michigan. It's normally right there about that 50-50 mark, but that's way up in production. A lot of times those Great Lakes states up there, the top 3, we see an increase in production later in the week. So excellent start for Michigan, shaping up to be nice. Minnesota, 398 loads in to 466 loads out. So still in good shape, but not as great as we have seen it in the past few weeks. It looks more like Michigan rather than what it looks like today. Still in good shape though, and still expect it to increase as the week goes on, giving you the negotiating power in Minnesota. But honey holes dry up, so it remains to be seen. A pattern will. Here's something, statistics and kind of logistics, a little lesson. A pattern will always continue to repeat itself until it doesn't. So it's basically it's saying that you want to keep doing something until it proves you wrong. Okay. So until Minnesota stops increasing that production or has way more loads than trucks later in the week, just assume that it will until it doesn't. So Moving on, Missouri, 616 loads in to 815 loads out. Certainly, that's a nice increase for Missouri, so good shape there. Mississippi, 286 loads in to 370 loads out. Mississippi's been strong past couple of weeks, so like to see it. Montana, 51 loads in to 59 loads out. North Carolina, 1,641 loads in to 962 loads out. I mean, that's gross shape, but we're finally back to normal. The production had fallen off, but we're seeing kind of back to normal for North Carolina. North Dakota, 43 loads in to 114 loads out. So a bit of a dip in production for North Dakota, but you certainly still have negotiating power up there, so use it. Nebraska, 164 loads in to 175 loads out. Wow. A bit of a decrease on both sides there, but it's above that 50-50 mark. So, don't get stuck there, though. Nebraska is not the greatest state for freight. New Hampshire, 130 loads in to 934 loads out. Jersey, 696 loads in to 1,035 loads out. So a little bit of an increase in production, a little bit of a decrease in loads in. So you do have some negotiating power in Jersey as long as New York is in okay shape, which we'll check here in a minute. New Mexico, 119 loads in to 154 loads out. Nevada, 169 loads in to 488 loads out. So, wow, certainly an increase for Nevada. Really good shape, negotiating power there. Use it. They will negotiate with you. They will negotiate with you if done right. If done right. I've got a video, teaching you how to negotiate if you so choose to increase your skill in negotiation. New York, 740 loads in to 1,044 loads out. So good shape for New York. So you do have a little bit of negotiating power there in New York and New Jersey. Yeah. Ohio, 1,376 loads in to 1,857 loads out. So it's an increase in loads in, while the norm for loads out there. It's a little bit less negotiating power than usual, but you still have some in Ohio. Make sure you get a good rate coming out of Ohio. Make sure you're not taking cheap freight out of there. It's one of the best states for freight. Oklahoma, 451 loads in to 238 loads out. So actually a slight increase in production there, but nothing much to speak of. Oregon, 148 loads in to 264 loads out. So a pretty big decrease in production there up there in the Northwest. Maybe it's turning around. Maybe you're losing that negotiating power up there. Maybe the pattern is changing. We'll see. Pennsylvania, 1,484 loads in to 1,880 loads out. So really good shape for PA. You've got a little bit of negotiating power up there considering the surrounding states, but not a ton. But at the same time, you should be getting a decent rate. And we'll look at what the average posting across the board for vans is across the United States. And you got to look at region, but that'll give you kind of an idea of where you should be. Rhode Island, 80 loads in to 16 loads out. Wow. South Carolina, 716 loads in to 737 loads out. So back to the norm for South Carolina, right there about that 50-50 split there. But with the surrounding markets, just not great for freight, unfortunately. Take what you can and get out of there. Anywhere southeast of basically Atlanta or south of North Carolina, just get out of there. South Dakota, 65 loads in, 65 loads out. A little bit low, but pretty much normal for South Dakota. Tennessee, 886 loads in to 840 loads out. So we're starting right there about that 50-50 mark. Kind of normal for Tennessee. Texas, 3,281 loads in to 2,160 loads out. So just normal for Texas. Utah, 297 loads in to 275 loads out. Right, just a little bit below that 50 mark, 50-50 split, but it's Utah, not the greatest of states for freight. Virginia, 788 loads in to 812 loads out. So a good start for Virginia. It had fallen off past week or maybe two, but right there back where it should be. Not great shape, but it's also not going to affect the surrounding states, which is good. Vermont, 25 loads in to 36 loads out. Washington, 300 loads in to 365 loads out. So yeah, Northwest it's not in terrible shape because you're still above that 50-50 split in Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, but at the same time, there's certainly a decrease in production there, so you might lose your negotiating power. You should still get a decent rate, but you know the negotiating power is falling off a little bit. Wisconsin 739 loads into 1,244 loads out. So great shape for Wisconsin, starting off strong. Look, if the pattern continues, right? Look for that to remain the same or even get better later on in the week, as the Great Lakes states normally do. West Virginia 80 loads in to 136 loads out, and Wyoming 44 loads in to 84 loads out. So since this is Monday, we are going to look at the trend lines. So the spot load posts from last week compared to the week before, right? That's the first number. So I'm gonna stop saying that just because that wastes a lot of time. So the very first number, that's what that's going to be. It's going to be last week's number compared to the week before. The second number I'm going to do I'll just say year over year. That's going to be this year's September compared to last year's September. That'll help us get through these numbers a little faster. So spot load posts, it's down 9%. Year over year, it's down 13.1%. The load to truck, is down 15.1%. And year over year, it's down 9.8%. The van spot rates are down 1%, but year over year, it's the same as last year. So see, we are moving in a positive direction. So hang on, guys, hang on. It's getting better. Flatbed is the load to truck ratio is down 14%, but year over year, it's up 28.2%. So a massive increase. Skateboards are making all the freight, all the money. The spot rates for flatbeds down 0.4%, but year over year, it's up 3.6%. For reefers, the load to truck ratio is down 13.1%. Year over year, it's down 1.9%. And then the spot rates for reefers, it's up 1.3%, but compared to last year, it's down 2.5%. The national spot rates. Yeah, it looks fine. No, it's okay. It looks good. I love you. Be safe. Alrighty. So national spot rates for vans, it's up from last month 5 pennies. So and yet another increase. The flatbeds are up 5 pennies, up to $2.43 from last month, and reefers are only down 1 penny, as opposed to 2, down to 2.37 from last month. Looking at the weekly brief, that's the same, so we're not going to repeat that. Fuel prices, so on average, they're at $3.58. That's not a change in this weekly percentage here. That's the same as what it had been. I'd like to see that drop, but freight going up and that dropping would be the ultimate, right? But it looks like we're not getting both this week. But look at that heat map. If you can't see it, if you're just listening, lots of red, lots and lots and lots of red. So starting off really, really strong. Up there in the Northwest, you've got Seattle market. It's looking good. It's a bit of a surprise though, because the numbers were not great. But it's showing to be hot in Seattle as well as Portland, even the southern half of Oregon, even the northern part of California, which be careful. But certainly not the best of shape, not as good as we had seen it or we have been seeing it. So a little bit of a false reading there in the Northwest. The San Francisco market is showing to be in decent shape. The rest of California is not, outside of the southern portion, which is usually in good shape. Southern portion of California is certainly hot. Sorry, my dogs are playing really hard today. The Phoenix market is showing to be hot, but we both know that it's not. What's also interesting here is that Nevada is not showing to be hot, although it's in excellent shape as far as load to trucks and ratios going. So interesting there. Typically in Nevada, it's the northern half, surprisingly. Not necessarily the southern half, but so do with that what you will. In Texas, the Dallas market is beating out the Houston market. But you do have Louisiana in pretty good shape this morning. Normally, the freight is in the bottom half of the state, so if you are in Houston, maybe look over in Louisiana, see what they've got, see if you can get a little bit better rate. But don't forget to calculate your deadhead. You got to calculate your deadhead in to make sure that you're getting a good rate or making good money. It's all about the bottom line, right? It's not just about the CPM. It's about the bottom line, what you keep, and you got to know what your deadhead rate, what your deadhead rate or deadhead cost is, because that calculates differently. It's not like being fully loaded. So you got to know that. You got to know all these things. That will help you determine how you can maximize and make the most money. Oklahoma, what freight there is, looks to be in the northwest or in the northeast. Do with that what you like. Anything southeast of Atlanta and south of North Carolina is just Death Valley over there. So be very, very careful. What's in Tennessee is showing to be over kind of close to Atlanta. Normally it's over there in the Memphis area, but it's not exactly what it's showing today. Looking at the Midwest, I mean, you just really can't go wrong. You can close your eyes and throw a dart and you'll be fine. The two markets that are not in great shape, which had been in okay shape, are the Kansas City and the St. Louis market. So that's fascinating, but pretty much you can't go wrong in Illinois. Iowa is in great shape. Indiana is in great shape. It's the southern half, but I mean that's pretty normal. Kind of the upper portion of Kentucky. I don't know. It's shaped funny, but it's in pretty good shape. Can't really go wrong in Ohio, although it's in the northern half this go around, as well as the Cincinnati market. Normally on Monday, the entirety of Ohio is covered. So that's kind of interesting. We'll see how that plays out. Normally, it's this northwest region that remains strong throughout the week, and the rest of Ohio kind of falls off. Up here in the Northeast, like I said, be careful. You've got lots of weather up there, and that's probably also why it's all red. Pretty much everything: Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, Delaware, New York, at least the western half, and even the eastern half of New York. Normally, eastern half of New York is blue. It's average right now. So, the rest of the states are just normal. It's the Northeast. What can you really say? But yeah, I think that's a product of the weather up there. And then lastly, up here, the Great Lakes states, Michigan. Usually, it's this western portion over here. Looks like the northern portion's got some freight. So if you happen to take something in way up there, maybe give it a look. But always look to the western half of Michigan, because that's where the better paying freight's going to be. Over there in Wisconsin, looks like what's paying is over here on the Minnesota half. So interesting. Normally, and you've got this market that's doing okay. That's over here kind of close to Chicago. Not great, but not bad. But basically, this Minneapolis and even just the greater Minneapolis area is where the freight's going to be at early this week. So let's see how the pattern plays out. Let's see how it all goes down for the remainder of this week. So there it is, trucking market update. I certainly appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe, ring the notification bell. These are going to drop, roughly between 8 and 8:30. This one's going to be out a little bit later than normal, just because I have to re-edit that first half. Is what it is. So I'll get it out as soon as I can. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Leave a comment, please. That helps, the algorithms. I don't care what you leave down there. Brian likes purple balloons, something, whatever. I don't care. Y'all have a great day. Keep that shiny side up. As always, stay driven. I'll see you tomorrow.